Hey, what's up, y'all? It's Steve again, Harmless Rebel. Time for the 2025 Metal Tag. Coming at it late, as usual. I think last year, or maybe the year before, last time I did it, I was like a couple months late. So I didn't want to be that far off. I had planned on doing this at the beginning of the year. Just got busy with other stuff. I've been doing some big projects around the house, and including here in the record room, I added some new shelves. So I've got stuff scattered everywhere, and pulling out more stuff was just not something I wanted to do, but I did it. So let's just jump into this. I think Marty Worm is the one that did this one. It looks like it was. If you're not subscribed to Marty's channel, you definitely should be. He's just got one of the great metal channels here in the vinyl community and on YouTube. So I will put a link below for his channel, and we'll get to some other channels later on, but let's just jump into this thing. Number one, name a release you're eagerly anticipating in 2025. So there's a few. Number one, though, is a Coroner. From what I understand, the album is written. I believe it's in production or post-production right now, last I saw. I've been wanting to hear a new Coroner album for 30 years. They're an all-time favorite of mine. A few others that I know are in production or have already been announced officially are a new album from COC. Death Angel has been talking about an album for years. We had Ron Reiner on the Medical Roundtable, and he had mentioned then he had just laid down, or he was just about to lay down the vocal tracks, and that they had been working on the album for a couple years. They have said it's going to come out this year. We'll see. Sabotage has a new album coming out. Their last album was a few years ago. It was fantastic. And then last but not least, another huge one for me is Whiplash. It's been, I think 2008 or 2009 was their last record. So it'll be really nice to get something from them as well. Number two, show the 25th item LP CD your choice in your collection. So all of my collections are set up a little different, but the 25th album, and I was going to do the 25th metal album, but it turned out to be the actual 25th album, and all three of these happened to be metal. So it kind of worked out perfectly. If it wasn't a metal album, the 25th, I was going to go to the next one, and that didn't end up happening. So the 25th is just one of the probably most underrated thrash metal bands out there. These guys really should have been in the big four of Teutonic thrash, but it's Who Dominates Who from the Great Accuser. This was 80. Oh man, it doesn't even say on the back. This is the No Remorse reissue from a few years ago. I don't remember when this one came out though. This one might be 90. If not, it was the late 80s though. But love Accuser. I don't like their last few albums as much. They're not bad albums. They just don't stack up to their first 4 or 5. Honestly, I listened to their last album 2 or 3 times, and I don't even remember any tracks standing out. I just remember thinking it was a good, solid album. So I went to my CDs as well. I've downsized my CDs quite a bit. I think I'm down to about 1,000. I had 5,000 or 6,000, so 25 wouldn't have gotten me very far in the A's, kind of like the Accuser did. But because I've gotten rid of a lot of them, it ended up getting all the way to Anthrax. But 25 got me all the way to Anthrax. And this is one, I don't even think this is on vinyl. I wish it would get a vinyl pressing, but this is from 99. And this is Return to the Killer A's. One that most of you have probably not seen if you're not a big Anthrax fan. But it's, Attack of the Killer Bees was a fantastic B-side album, which I just showed that on that LP. Maybe I haven't posted the video yet, but I do show that record in the video. It may not be posted because I banked like 5 or 6 metal videos. But Attack of the Killer A. So it's basically kind of a greatest hits. That's all A-sides from their singles. And then number 25 in cassettes. So my cassettes aren't in any order. I've just kind of got my favorites in the main section. and then some not so favorites lower down, and it just happened to be that the 25th was my original cassette of Don't Break the Oath from Merciful Fate. So very cool. Excuse my allergies are really bad, so excuse me if I'm messing with my nose. Let's see. Number 3, overdue. Name an older band that you checked out for the first time in 2024 and you loved. So this is one that there's actually 2 that I'm going to show. There's going to be a couple like this where he has, for one, I'm going to show 2 because it's my video. I don't care. I'm going to go with this first one, though, is a progressive death metal band that Carcass John, who does the Metal Roundtable with me, talks about quite a bit. And last year, this was like his number 1 or 2 record of the year. So in 2023, this was his number 1 or 2 record. So I ended up getting this midway through last year. But this is The Endearing Spirit from the mighty Tomb Mold. I believe Tomb Mold is Canadian. I believe they're from Toronto. Don't quote me on that, but I'm going off of memory, but I believe that's correct. But just really good progressive death metal. Really been digging this one. I also bought the album before this as well a couple months ago. I want to find their debut as well, but I've really been digging this band. And this is another one. This is a band from, this is an album from 96. I think this was a one and done. So when, oh man, I'm drawing a blank. Why can't I think of his name? He's one of my favorites too. Oh, come on. Eric Wagner. Oh my God, I don't know why I couldn't get that out. And you'll see Eric Wagner again in this. But in 90, I believe it was 97. So shortly after Eric Wagner left Trouble, the band he's most famous for, he released this album. And it's Lid in the Mushroom. Lid is the band, and the Mushroom is the LP. This is just an album I didn't know existed. I don't remember. I was doing something on Discogs. I was trying to remember an album or one of the side projects that Eric Wagner did. So I was looking up stuff that he was involved in on Discogs, and this album popped up. I don't know how this one got past me or how I've never heard this, but I absolutely love this. I have been playing this pretty much nonstop for the last 6 or 7 months. I've told 3 or 4 people about it who went out and bought it, and they love it as well. So one, if you're an Eric Wagner fan, one that I just highly recommend. Eric Wagner, I think is, I think he's one of the more important guys in metal, not just in doom metal. And he's put out some of my all-time favorite stuff, whether it was this one with Lid, the stuff with Trouble, the stuff with the Skull, the Black Hands. It's all fantastic. And him and Wino, I've talked about this before, have the perfect doom metal voices. When I think of doom metal, those are the 2 voices I always go to. I absolutely love both of those guys. Messiah's up there too, Messiah Marconi. So anyway, so we're going to go with those. Feeding the Monkey. How do you purchase most of your music? So I am all over the place. If it's new stuff or pre-orders, I love pre-ordering stuff from the band, whether it's through Bandcamp or through their website. I collect signed. I mean, you can see all the stuff on my walls, and all the stuff all the way around me is all signed. I've probably got 300 or 400 signed records. I love getting stuff signed. I love pre-ordering stuff. So if there's anything that I can order from their Bandcamp or from their website, especially if it's signed, I always do that. Or if I know I'm going to see them soon, a lot of bands will either sell their album at the show or sell a signed copy, and I'll buy the album and try to get it signed if it's not already. I do that a lot. Used vinyl, unless it's something super hard to find, I usually buy it in the stores. There's a couple stores here in the Atlanta area that I just find some amazing metal and punk stuff. And I buy a lot of my Grail stuff that people are shocked when I show is actually stuff that I find in local stores. Now, there are some favorites of mine recently that I've bought online just because the only way you're going to get them is to get them from Europe. So, you know, it's hit or miss, though. I do buy stuff from Amazon from time to time, but it's pretty rare at this point. If I'm doing that, it's usually because I can't find it anywhere else, or Amazon's got some crazy deal where you can get the album for $15 or something like that. So Bandcamp and the band's website's #1 for new stuff. For used stuff, almost exclusively in the stores. I buy a lot of used or new stuff from labels as well. So it's a pretty good mix. Where were we? #5, Enigma. Show a heavy metal album that musically is really hard to place in a heavy metal subgenre. I've talked about this one a lot, so I'm not going to go too far into it, but I'm going to go with Blood Incantation. Blood Incantation is all over the place. They'll release an album that's straight up progressive death metal. Then they'll release an EP that's basically Tangerine Dream. With their most recent album, I talked about this. This was my #1 album of the year. But with Absolute Elsewhere, it's kind of a mix of traditional old school death metal mixed with a little bit of Pink Floyd and a little bit of Tangerine Dream. And it's not each song sounds like that. Each song has those elements mixed into it. Super dynamic and just super killer. Highly recommend that album. But, you know, you can't really call them progressive death metal because they add a lot more to it than just what we consider progressive death metal. You know, progressive death metal is usually technical death, you know. And this is much more. They're definitely adding that 70s prog element to it. So I'm going to go with that one. Let's see. Talk about an album that you used to hate, but after years, it finally clicked and now you can't get enough of it. This was a hard one for me because I couldn't really think of any albums that I used to hate. I've talked about this before, though. I was not a big new wave of British heavy metal guy, or just straight up metal in general. A lot of the new wave of British heavy metal, when I started listening to it in the late 80s, early 90s, it wasn't heavy enough. I was into thrash at that point, real hardcore, and none of that stuff was heavy enough for me. And with this band, even though I always liked this band and I did like this album, this was my least favorite from the band. And it's actually flipped in the last 10 years where this is now my favorite album from the band. And it's the debut from Iron Maiden. And like I said, just new wave of British heavy metal in general. I just didn't get the new wave of British heavy metal thing. It wasn't for me. I thought it was kind of soft, kind of weak. And as I've gotten older, that's become some of my favorite metal. Some of the stuff from the late 70s and early 80s is the stuff I listen to all day, every day. The Di'Anno stuff I didn't get when I was younger. Even when I got into, it was probably... I really got into them on Seventh Son, and it was just an age thing, and I worked backwards and got into the first few albums with Dickinson on them, and those were the ones I really loved. The Run for the Hills, all that stuff, and I just thought this early stuff was weak. And now this is by far my favorite Iron Maiden album. It's not even close. So and the follow up is my second favorite, and it's not even close. So not really an album I hated. I one that does come to mind, and it's not really metal, especially this particular album, but one that I hated when it came out. So I loved the Deftones. I was of that age that the first few Korn albums, the first few Deftones albums, I absolutely loved. And when White Pony came out, I listened to it once. I thought it was trash. They changed their sound. And I remember throwing it into my collection, and I didn't touch it for like 2 years, maybe 3 years. And then I heard a song off of it. I don't remember where, but I thought it was amazing. And I went back, and that became that's my favorite Deftones album now. So maybe that's a better example. Let's see. Number 7, show an album that you blind bought in 2024. I'm sure there's a bunch. but maybe not. I mean, I'm in the record stores a couple times a week. I buy a lot of records. I have a lot of friends online in the industry. I do the Metal Roundtable. I do 2 live streams a week. We're always talking about music and always talking about new bands. So it's not too often that I actually see something in the record store that in some way I don't know about. But here was one. And it's not a great album. It's not one I recommend running out and buying. But it's a good street metal, like working class metal album from, I think it's 82. Yeah, 82. But this is Vendetta. I believe they were a Detroit heavy metal band. They look about how they sound. Again, I would not call this a great band. There's no standout tracks. I understand why most of you probably don't know who this is. It's not great. It's just good working class metal. If I grew up in Detroit, this is probably, if you grew up in Detroit in the 80s, this is probably more something you would be into than anybody else, if that makes sense. So let's see. Impulse. Collector Scum. Show a title you own more than one pressing of on the same format. So I'm going to show these. I own multiple copies of these on the same format and on different formats. So I'm going to show the different formats instead of just showing you 3 copies of the same record. So this first one, I own an original pressing of this. I own this one, which is the Elektra. Is it Elektra? I believe this is Elektra. This is the Elektra white label promo. And then I also own a deluxe version from a few years ago. But one of my all-time favorite albums, Metal Church, the debut. The song Metal Church is an all-time favorite of mine. I love this thing beginning to end. This was a huge album for me and getting me, kind of transitioning me towards thrash. This is one of those bands. I remember when it came out, people called it thrash. People called it power metal, U.S. power metal. And they kind of were on that borderline where they were a little thrashy. They were a little, had a little of the USPM. It's just a fantastic album. It's one that should be in every Metalhead's collection. But this is one that I have. This is the white label promo. This is an original pressing of the CD. And then this is my original cassette from 100 years ago. And this is one where a friend of mine let me borrow this. And I never gave it back to him. It was so good. And I told him I would buy it from him. He said, don't worry about it. He let me keep it as a gift. But man, love, love, love this. And number 2, probably my favorite metal album of all time. If you've watched my channel long enough, I'm sure you've heard me talk about this. I love Trouble, but their second self-titled record from 1990, I think is one of the greatest metal albums of all time. There's not a flaw on this thing. And again, it's a self-titled from Trouble. I love everything about this beginning to end. I just think it's a perfect album. Definitely, if it's not my favorite, it's in my top 2 or 3. And if I did a list of the 10 greatest metal albums of all time, this one would be pretty high up on it. But absolutely love this one. Funny enough, this one, and I have this copy of it. I have a recent reissue that Hammerheart did. This one, again, this one's a white label promo. I have the Hammerheart did like one variant that they only did like 100 of, so I have that. I would love to find the Japanese pressing of that. That's one I've been looking for forever. I have it on CD, which, funny enough, is also a promo copy. Had this one for quite some time. And, of course, have it on cassette as well. Like I said, just an all-time favorite of mine. So, there you go. Trouble and Metal Church, both self-titled albums. Where are we at? Number 7, number 8, number 9. Show off a grail that you acquired in 2024. So I actually found quite a few grails. One of my biggest grails, And now I've scored 2 copies of it, believe it or not. It's not even metal. But those of you guys from the 90s will probably know this. But a near mint pressing of Mad Season Above, which was a side project with Lane Staley, Mike McCready, and the drummer from Screaming Trees. I can't think of his name right now. And I found 2 copies. I've been looking for that for like 10 years and found all longer than that. Anyway, I found 2 near mint copies of it this year. But when it comes to metal, there were a few that I had been looking for forever, but these are like big dollar ones that I found super clean pressings of. This first one I've been looking for at least 20 years, and I was shocked to walk in and see it on the shelf of one of my stores. And other than the hole punch, this thing is mint. It looked like it had never been played before. But we've got the debut from Rigor Mortis. This is just one of those 10 out of 10 records. Again, this should be in everybody's collection. I could have shown this one too. I don't have multiple copies of this on vinyl, but I have this. I have an original CD. I have an original copy of the cassette as well. It's just been always been a favorite of mine. I've always loved this album cover too. So that was a huge grail. And this one is another one that I just kind of recently picked up. I've always wanted to find a copy of this. This is the original self-release version. I believe it was self-release. I think that was their record label. I could be wrong, though. But this is the Roadster Records pressing of Crystal Logic from Manila Road. This thing is VG Plus. It's not near as clean as the Rigor Mortis. But original pressings of this, they don't pop up. And they don't pop up for anywhere near the price that I paid for this. And it sounds great. If you don't, this is one, I don't care if you have a repress of, this is another one. This should be in your collection. Even if you're not a fan of any of the other Manila Road, this is definitely one to have. All right. A plea to the vinyl, or to the VCLT gods. What is a grail item you're on the hunt for? I'm always looking for super clean pressings of the first 4 Danzigs and the Sam Hain albums. I see them all the time. They're not as rare as people think they are. It's just hard to find them in good condition for a decent price. Like the ones I really want are Danzig 3, How the Gods Kill, and then Danzig 4. I have a copy of Danzig 4 that looks mint, but when you play it, it just doesn't play that good. And the Sam Hain stuff, I used to see the Sam Hain stuff all the time, and it's just skyrocketed lately, and when I see it, it's just trashed. So I would love to find some really clean OGs. I think Boomerang is next. Yeah, Boomerang album. Show an album that no matter how many times you purge it from your collection, another copy returns. This is one of those records, every time I do a big purge, I purge all the records from this band, and I always ended up buying them again. It's one of those bands that I hate to love, I guess, more than I love to hate, but it's Rat, and specifically Out of the Cellar. I've gotten rid of this record and this CD and this cassette probably a dozen times over the years. And this one specifically, but not just this one, basically the first 3 records always end up back in my collection. I'll just get in the mood where I want to hear Rat, and I'll go out and buy them. So I've decided I'm finally at a point where I'm not going to get rid of them again. I've got really clean copies. I'm just going to end up keeping them. All right, Reunion. Name an artist that you lost track of over time but reconnected with in 2024. This one was hard. I spent hours trying to think of somebody. But even bands that I hadn't listened to in a decade, I haven't lost track of them. I just hadn't been in the mood to listen to them. And even the band I'm going to show, I still listen to their first 2 records at least once a year. However, they hadn't released a record since 1989. So it was really nice to see a new album from Atrophy after almost 40 years. So I think 34 years, but this is Asylum from Atrophy. This made my top 10 of the year. And if you're a thrash fan and you like Atrophy, you should pick this up. I mean, they pick up right where they left off on their second album. So I'm going to go with that one. Next up, name a new band whose debut album really impressed you. The debut didn't have to come out in 2024, but recently. I believe this originally came out in 2022 on CD. I bought it based on the recommendation of a good friend of mine. I'm also friends with the label owner who talked them up quite a bit. I later found out they're technically a local band. I don't think they do shows. It's two guys. And one of the guys is involved in another band too. But this is Motivic, Death of the Gunman. Just a fantastic traditional thrash album. Really dug this one. This copy, I bought I think the first 100 people that bought it, you got a little signed 10-inch. Their second album came out this year. It was my number 2 of the year, behind the Blood Incantation. So go on Bandcamp if you haven't checked out Motivic and check them out. I love both their albums. They're both worth having in the collection. They're both 10 out of 10 records. Let's see. Influencer. Show a band release that you bought in 2024 as a direct result of watching someone's channel. This is partially bought because brother Scott Waters was constantly talking about him to me and talking about him on his videos. But one of the members of the band also came on the Metal Roundtable with us, and I bought this album the next day. They've actually released another album and an EP this year as well. This one was originally from, I think, 2022. Maybe it was 2023 when this one came out, but it didn't come out on vinyl until January of this year. But this is one I talked about in my most recent rankings video, as well as an honorable mention. And this features John Kelly, who was in Typo Negative, and Dan Lorenzo, who was in Hades, and it's Patriarchs in Black. They've got 3 full lengths now, I think, and they're working on a 4th and maybe 2 EPs. So I recommend any of their stuff, though. It's those 2 guys, and then they bring in different vocalists. There's like 6 different vocalists on that record. I haven't heard their other stuff. This one is fantastic, though. This one is called My Veneration. So definitely recommend that one. Don't judge a book by its cover. Show a great album with bad cover art. This is the ultimate for that. It's one of the worst covers. And the music on here is 10 out of 10. And we're going back to the new wave British heavy metal stuff. But this is Burn This Town from Battle Axe. This is just one of those perfect records. And I personally love these badly drawn... Arthur Ball. I don't even know if that was one of the band members. No, it's not. But man, it's just one of those perfectly bad. And you'll see this one usually when people do the top 10 worst metal album covers. This one's usually up there in the list. But if you don't have this is just killer new wave of British heavy metal. Was this 83? See if I can see it on here anywhere. No. Great album, though. Number 16. Show an album whose cover was created by one of your favorite artists. I could have gone Ripka. I mean, there's so many great artists, but I wanted to spotlight Axel Herman. He's done some of my favorite album covers. Some of the ones that come to mind are almost all the Iced Earth album cover, or at least my favorite ones. He did all the Asphyx album covers. He's done M8, M16, and Code Red from Sodom. Probably 50 different bands. This is actually one of his earliest ones before he went by Axel Herman. What did he call himself on this one? So when he did their EP, he called himself Axel. It was something else. He called himself Axel, but it was like the Amazing Axel or something along those lines. Somebody will put it in the comments. But Axel Herman, and this is Nothing But the Truth from Liar. This is German thrash from '89. He did, that I know of, he did 3 records in '89, 2 for this band. One was a EP. I'm trying to think there was another band he did in '89 too. But he really blew up with the Iced Earth album covers. That's where he kind of made a name for himself. And just a killer artist. So Axel Herman. Name an album that you would like to see reissued on vinyl or CD. Most of the stuff I really wanted to see get reissued or that had never been issued to vinyl has been in the last few years. There was a lot of stuff I was looking for years that's finally getting some love now. One I would like to see get reissued just because it's hard to find copies, and this won't get reissued. And if you know the story behind Ray Gillen, you'll know why. But both the Badlands albums I would love to see get reissued on vinyl. I'll let you Google why. It'll never happen. But man, this was such a good band. Jakey Lee, Greg Chasen is super underrated. You had Eric Singer on drums. And then Ray Gillen. Ray Gillen, horrible person, fantastic singer. The Gillen Eternal Idol is fantastic. If you haven't heard that, buy the deluxe version that's got the Tony Martin and then the Ray Gillen stuff on CD 1 and CD 2. But Badlands, fantastic. Name an album from a genre that you typically do not listen to very much. I liked this genre very early on when it was more. It was metal. It's black metal. I'm not a big black metal guy. All of my favorite black metal stuff is the early stuff when it was metal with black metal vocals or like the early. What is it? I'm trying to think of the band where it was metal with almost a screeching punk sound to it. But regardless, this is my favorite black metal album, and I've talked about this before. By far, I got a copy of this when it came out. I had a buddy, Shane, who actually replaced me in my first band. When I left the band, he replaced me on drums. He was from New York, though, and New York and LA both had a black metal scene before anybody else in the world had heard of it. Outside of certain small areas in Europe. And he started a distro here in the U.S., so he was bringing in stuff from all the private. Actually, do I have it right here? Yeah, actually, this is the original private press of the Dark Angel. What record was this one? I can't remember the name of this record, but this is their self-released copy that he hooked me up with. But he was dealing directly with the guys in Norway and getting that stuff, and he was the first before it was in any of the stores. Sorry about that. My camera overheated there and shut down, so I had to wait for it to cool off. But no, as I was saying, what was the question? Name a genre that you typically don't listen to very much. I was talking about black metal. I don't listen to a lot of black metal, especially these days. Once black metal went symphonic, I kind of lost interest in all of it. I like the early stuff, as I was saying, where it was metal with the black metal vocals. Anyway, one of my all-time favorites to this day is this album. I still have the original CD that I got back. And does it say when it came out? It doesn't, but I got this CD shortly after it came out. I played this nonstop for quite some time, and I still pull it out from time to time. Unfortunately, I don't like anything else that this band ever released because they changed their sound on the second album. But 95, sorry. Was that may not be right either. I think it was before that. Yeah, I want to say it was before. This says the live sessions from 95. So this is basically a remaster on disc 1. Disc 2 is a live session, a live studio session from 95. But it's Bork Nagar, the debut album. Bork Nagar is, I believe it's German. I'm pretty sure they're German, but it's a German black metal. They went the Viking metal route, or maybe it was prog metal. I can't even remember now. on the second album, and I liked part of it, but this first album is the one for me. Anytime somebody mentions black metal around me, this is still the first one that pops up. This and Principles of Evil Made Flesh. And then, like I said, this bad boy right here. Love them. But if you haven't checked out Borknagar, this is definitely one to check out. Let's see. Is that the last question? What band do you hope to see live in 2025? So I've already got a few tickets. I've got tickets to see Metallica with Pantera and Suicidal. I've never seen Suicidal before, so I'm looking forward to that. Let's see who else I'm seeing. I've already got tickets to go see AC/DC. I'm going to drive up to Nashville to see them. Oh, man. So the bands I'm really looking forward to seeing is Cavalera again. I love the Cavalera stuff. I talked about it every time they redo one of the Sepultura albums. That era of Sepultura, the Max era, that's my favorite. That's pretty much my favorite music ever. I'm planning to see Coroner the week after that. Coroner is an all-time favorite of mine. I've been into them since '89. I'm so glad that they're finally coming to the U.S. It has to be at least 20 years since they've been here. And they're playing a small venue, which is crazy. But I'm going to see them with Deceased. And then a week after that is Haunt. So I'm looking forward to seeing them again. So there's a lot of good shows coming up and that I plan to go to. And weirdly enough, there's a lot of them that are grouped together where like within a week, there's 2 or 3 different shows I want to see, which kind of, it sucks when that happens, but some of these are going to be real cool. Like I said, seeing Coroner in a small venue that holds like 200 people, man, I still can't believe they're playing such a small venue here in Atlanta. It's kind of sad if you think about it, but I've also seen Raven there. Who else have I seen there? I saw The Skull there. It doesn't matter. So looking forward to those shows. And then in closing, tell the viewers about 2 new YouTube channels you've discovered. So 2 new ones I've discovered this year are, let's see, Metal Music Meltdown. I'm not sure how long he's been around. But I've really liked quite a few of the videos of his that I've seen. And I'll put some links down below. And then another one is George G's Room of Rock. He's a guy that's kind of in the same type of stuff that I'm into. I got turned on to him by Scott Waters. George has been on a couple of the heavy metal roundtables with us as well. So I will put a link for him down below as well. And then I got to give a shout out to Brett at Headbanger's Closet. We've met up a few times and hung out a few times. It's always good to see him. He needs a lot more subscribers, though. He does some great videos. I really dig his stuff. We share a lot of similar interests. So I'm going to go with those 3. So I hope everybody's doing good. I hope to see your 2025 metal tags. I've been purposely not watching a lot of them, so if I haven't commented on yours, it's not anything personal. When there's tags and stuff like this going around, I don't like watching anybody else's until mine is done. So now that mine's done, I'll go back and watch some of y'all's as well. I hope everybody's doing good, and I'll see you soon, VC. Take care.